Welcome. In today's episode, Great.com talks with Great.com. It's the first episode of our new podcast, and I am here with my good friend and the co-host of this podcast, Spirit. Hi, Spirit.
Hey. Right, so I'm here today as the co-host, and I'm also with Emil, who are the second co-host. Emil, for me, is a person that if I had to switch life with someone, I might actually have Emil on my list. I think Emil would be a great person to switch life with. So that's a short background on Emil. And Emil, this is the first episode we're recording today about this new podcast. Could you tell us what's the purpose of this podcast?
Before I share, so here I am trying to make a concise intro, and then Spirit says something really nice about me. And this is such a core of Spirit's personality, to always up level how much good attention he can give to someone. So there you go. Now we're even. Okay, so the purpose of this podcast and what we want to give to you, the one listening, is to introduce you to a lot of very interesting people and organizations in a way that is easy to understand.
Right, and why do we want to do that for the audience?
Well, there's a problem we are trying to solve when we go into these fantastic organizations and we take a look at their website. So can you explain what the problem is and how we try and solve it?
So we start to research, because we're giving away money ourselves to charity, and we start to research different charities, which one to give away to. And what we kind of realize is that it's quite hard. Sometimes people have the names doesn't really reflect what they do. So you have to go into the website and check, and even going into the website can be quite hard to understand. So for example, we had this organization. We wanted to donate to the environment, and we got this recommendation, Coalition for Rainforest Nation, right? And that was a quite tricky name, and it became even more complex when we went into the website. So we realized, okay, there is a gap here. You have this fantastic organization, but still it's very hard to understand what it is that they're doing. So I guess that would be a very big part of this. The big part of the solution we're trying to find is to help people to easily understand what kind of organizations are out there and what fantastic work are they doing.
I like that summary, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into what the purpose is for us here later in this episode. But what can the audience expect? What is the structure we're going to have in these episodes? What's going to happen?
That's really going to help to see the structure, right? So we have a structure of three different themes in a sense. So the first one would be environmental. So because the environment is very important right now, or it's always is, we're focusing a lot of the episodes going to go towards the most effective or interesting new ways to how do we address the environment. The second one would be animal welfare. And actually, I should say this. Personally, I'm going to focus more on the environment, because that's really, I wouldn't say my background, but I'm really my focus right now myself. So it makes sense. And then animal welfare would be something that you, Emil, is going to work with. And also, you're also adding to that, because charity is such a huge sector. So we're going to dig into effective altruism as a whole. So if you would explain either animal welfare or effective altruism, is there anything you want to elaborate on with those two?
Yes. So animal welfare, it's my heart question personally. If I had to make a donation to any cause in the world right now, I would love to see the conditions for animals improve. But I'm also, as a person, a quite logical and mathematical guy. So I really love the space of effective altruism, which is basically like, I would call it a movement online of a lot of smart and logical people trying to figure out which ways of improving the world is the most effective. Where can I get the most good for every dollar I choose to give?
Now, we have identified that we want to do this 20 minutes interview, so it's quite crisp and short. And we have identified that that's enough to explain organizations and why it is important. But we also identified quite a problem when we start to do these interviews. And it was actually you who kind of realized that problem. So tell us why. So one format we have is the short interviews, but we're also having another format. So what is the other one?
Right. So it's not a problem, but I'm a very curious person. Like whenever I talk with someone and they are passionate about something, I want to know more. I'm like, why is this such an important thing? So I so often talk with someone in an organization that is doing something very interesting that I haven't heard of before. And the 20-minute format is just not enough to get to the bottom of why are they doing this and all the complexities that can be involved. So what I really want to do, as well as the shorter 20 minutes episode, is to re-invite some of the organizations back so that we really get a chance to dive deep into some of these important causes. So if you're someone that is listening to this, that want to get a feeling for the people behind the organizations and have them explained and being introduced to new ideas, I would say go for the 20-minute ones. But if you are a person that really want to go to the bottom of things, look for episodes that we release that are a bit longer, maybe 40, 60 minutes. And yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree there that that's not really a problem. It's more because we learned that there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
So how about we give a short introduction about a little bit about us. So if you would say anything about us doing this podcast, who are you and who am I? Not as, anything you can say about us?
Well, we kind of gave a little introduction in the beginning. And I think one thing I want to share here is that we are not super experts in charity. We've been interested in this field for a couple of years. We work in a charity organization, great.com, but still we have so much to learn. And every time I talk with someone, I come across something that I was completely unaware of. So we are going to learn with you guys in the process of creating this podcast. So is there something more you would like for them to know about us?
No, I like that.
Yeah. You'll get to know us if you listen to a couple of episodes. So to exemplify this, do you have an example? Because we will be doing separate interviews, right? And I would love to, it annoys me that I'm missing out on everything that Spirit is learning. So do you have an example of something that you have learned so far that you didn't know before?
I do. So far I've been doing 15 of these interviews, and one interview that strikes me is I talked to an organization called IT for Children, and they're basically they're transporting computers from Sweden down to Ghana so that they can give they're giving free education in IT for the children. And when we started to talk in the interview, it was all about it's IT education because it's equal right for anyone to have access to information. So the equal right to information was the ground thesis I was going into. But then I realized that this education of educating the kids after they go to regular school, they can add 2 hours of IT education. And the symbol for that is much, much deeper or much more important than what I thought was just normal education. Because in the regular school they go to, they are actually, the conditions are the teachers are allowed to beat up the children. So you can imagine that the safety in those schools is quite horrible, that the children have to that standard. They are walking around with a cane and they can kind of just hit children if they're not giving the right answer. So with this IT education, they've seen another reality. So it's more about safety for the children. And that kind of strikes me as, I would not have understood that if I just looked at the website. Now I get it. It's much more than what it seems like on the surface.
Mm.
That would be one example for me. So that was IT
so
for
can
children.
I summarize? When you talked with the founder of this organization and you heard his stories, you can connect with the emotional experience of the children that is giving this little time of peace from the fear that you wouldn't understand just by hearing the words computers to Ghana.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
And I guess you have something similar. Do you have any example on what you've been learning so far?
Yeah, one thing that I learned when I talked with the Clean Air Task Force, an organization with another kind of long name that we also have donated to with Great.com. There in that interview, we talked about mass producing nuclear power plants and how that can be a solution to climate change. And I learned about a new type of power plant that is much safer, that is reusing fuel from other power plants, and that can be created in masses and standardized. I hadn't thought about this, but all the power plants in the world right now are created with their own kind of construction, their own blueprint. And if you look at airplanes, for example, there are thousands of airplanes in the world, but there are only like 20, 30 models probably. So of course, nuclear power plants should be constructed this way. So they're safer. So all of them look the same. And there's so much more to it in that interview, but that just sparked a new reality. And it sparked something that I can see being one of the solutions to our climate crisis.
An alternative way to reinvent energy. Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason we bring these two examples up right now is to give a little bit of a taste of a type of episode that I think we will also be doing now and then in the future, which is me and Spirit, the hosts of these podcasts, coming together and sharing kind of the golden nuggets of what we have learned when talking with loads of interesting people and interesting organizations. So what do you see being the main value to the one listening to this podcast, to the listener?
I have one word. Clarity. Clarity, clarity, clarity.
That's 3 words.
4. Right. And you, what do you see the main value for listeners listening to this podcast?
I got 27 words for you. No. Well, I see what is also missing from the website is the people behind the website. And we don't connect to via words, we connect with experiencing their energy. I've talked to so many people right now that are so likable, that are so passionate about their cause, that are so inspiring, that are making sacrifices to bring into this world what they see is missing. And that passion will come out so much more in a conversation. So I would love to show our listeners who are the people behind these projects. So, Spirit, imagine now that we're coming towards the end of this episode. So imagine now that someone is listening to this and they are, of course, super excited to be a part of this, to maybe listening to more episodes. So if they want to help us out, if they want to help this project reach more people, what is something that they can do?
Yes, there are things that you can do. If you're a person working for an organization, then you think either your organization or an organization that really deserves more attention, then we would love to talk to you. So please send us an email to podcast@great.com. podcast@great.com. That would really we're a team here who are, of course, finding these organizations, but there's so many more that we cannot scout. So if you can help us with that, then it's really going to be for the benefit of everyone to take part of that organization. So please send us an email telling us about fantastic organizations out there. And Also, if you're a person listening to this who are not connected to an organization, you can do something. But I'm gonna let Emil tell you, what can you do if you're a person doing that?
Right. So if you want to spread the message of these organizations further, something super important that you can do is to go into your podcast app or on YouTube and press subscribe. And the reason for that, especially in the podcast apps, is that if you get into top lists or not, it's not dependent on how many listeners you have. It's dependent on how big of a percentage of your listeners are subscribing. So it really helps us out if you go into your podcast app and press subscribe.
Thank you for paying attention, and have a wonderful day, Emil. Have a wonderful day, everyone listening. Yes.
Thank you. And I would go into all of these interviews with a gold digger mindset, looking for these key concepts, these golden nuggets, and I will bring them back to you, Spirit, the next time we catch up and talk about what we learned.